The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
We are back. A's baseball, past, present, and future. And after a few weeks off, we're joined by Nancy Finley and our steady guy, Jerry Feiteberg.
Hello.
How are you, gentlemen and ladies?
Great.
Doing well. Doing well.
Okay. You had a good day today. You met up with some friends. Jerry, you were telling us off air, and had a delightful lunch. Nancy is anxious to be back, and I'm anxious to hear your voice because all the talking we did, I wanted to elaborate on when you first moved out here. You told us briefly about being in a penthouse, and I come to find out from rereading your book a little bit that your dad and Joe DiMaggio were buds, and he would come over and talk about stuff. And what's your memory of Jolton Joe? Because go ahead.
After I came out, apparently Joe D stopped coming over because I think he just felt like Dad needed time to be with me because we'd been apart for a few years. And that's just the way he was. He was a lot like Dad. Dad would have done the same. But I remember seeing him at the Hyatt, where everyone, the Edgewater, they called it, in the coffee shop and then at the front office. And Dad told me, in fact, there were some leftovers from one of the dinners he made for the two of them because they preferred to get together on a Friday or Saturday night and talk rather, than if one didn't have a date or wasn't that sure of a date, they'd rather be together. They enjoyed each other's company.
And do you think that they did that because if they went into a restaurant, DiMaggio was such a personality that he'd draw a lot of attention?
Yes, and DiMaggio owned, I think he owned a restaurant at that time also. He was I think it was good for him to get away. They were both private people, and what they talked about, apparently even Marilyn Monroe was brought up.
That was sacred ground. You weren't supposed to mention her name to him.
Well, he mentioned her. See, Dad wasn't.
He did it.
Dad was never enamored of her like I hear a lot of people were. So, and it wasn't something that Dad would mention, but apparently Joe D brought it up because he felt like some people came up to him because of that, not because of who he was. And,
well, it's interesting. He must have had a lot of trust for your dad to be able to talk to him about that, because I haven't read anything in all these years of him confiding in anybody, opening up to anybody. As a matter of fact, with certain people, Jerry put it right. That was the kiss of death to an acquaintanceship. If you mentioned her at all.
Yeah. See, Dad is and I think Andy Dolich might have touched on this. I don't know. Andy didn't know Dad as well as Joe D, but Dad was the type who could keep a secret or not go and blab it to everyone. He was just that type, very private. I would not have written my book if Dad was around. Dad would have been appalled by the title. He's so modest. So it was the two of them. In fact, they were such good friends that my cousin tells me how in Dallas at the 1980 winter meeting, Joe came up to the table at Dad's request because Dad wanted to impress my cousin who was a male right out of law school. and knew Uncle Carl was with the A's, and he was certainly impressed. And Whitey Ford walks up, Billy Martin walks up. I mean, all these legends with the Yankees, and but it was Joe D who did it because Dad asked him to.
And that is a wow. That really is something. I would have loved to have been there to meet Whitey Ford, Mickey Mantle, or Billy Martin under those circumstances. Yeah. That had to be exciting for anybody.
Yeah, I'll need to see if Mantle is named. I always see Mantle's name. You know, I see it more than the others. So I guess that's why I try to remember the others. But yes, Dad. So most of Dad's friends were with former Yankees.
Well, you know, it's interesting, and you have Joe DiMaggio in your book listed as a consultant with the A's.
We also said he was a VP. We had floating titles.
I know, but Joe was actually listed as a coach officially, so he could get pension time.
Yeah.
He didn't have enough years under the pension to qualify, and although he was quite well-to-do, he's still well-to-do people don't leave money on the table, and Joe and your dad and Charlie worked it out so he could be an active coach, and he turned out to mentor a lot of the young A's that went on to the greatness of that dynasty.
I remember
Reggie Jackson in particular, Green, Campy, all those guys benefited from knowing Joe DiMaggio.
He was invited to our...
But your dad knew him in a way that really amazes Jerry and I both, because I don't think either of us have ever heard of him being that open with anybody.
Well, when I was looking in Dad's Rolodex, because I wanted, the A's asked if I could find out who made our green cowboy hats. So I go to Dad's Rolodex, and I'm looking, and I see several numbers for DiMaggio, residence, restaurant.
Oh.
I mean, it's really
cool.
Dad's Rolodex. Do you know the name Spec Richardson?
Spec Richardson, yeah, he was the general manager of the Spec, yes. I thought you said Seth, but yes, Spec Richardson, yes.
Yeah, his name, I can tell Dad, I heard his name mentioned quite a bit, and then I see his information in Dad's Rolodex.
Well, he was a general manager at Houston, and then became an interim general manager in San Francisco when they were just going under. And they, am I right, Jerry? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I think Al Rosen succeeded Spec as general manager around 1985.
Oh, Al Rosen.
And they brought in Roger Craig to manage.
Okay,
and then about right?
Okay, that name is familiar. I see Bob Lurie, of course. And then I'm so glad I could do this because I pulled some names out of here that I can't.
Nancy, that Rolodex needs to go to the Hall of Fame.
You're right.
Oh,
I hadn't thought of that.
I haven't heard that in a female voice, but a few times in my life.
Hey, I'm very
generally,
open to.
I'm so happy to hear that. Nice, Nancy.
Now that I have you on the phone, I can ask. I can ask you. Here's McKeon. We know who he is.
Jack McKeon.
Yeah, KC Chiefs. Several numbers for them. Langford, Jim Langford. We know who that is. Oh wow. I love it. Kansas City Carnival. Okay.
All right, Nancy.
Yeah,
let me take a time out and get.
But Nancy, he didn't have the phone number for Alameda Drug, he should have had that. That was my store in Alameda.
He might.
Oh, you should always have the drug guy in your wallet.
Yeah, right. You got it.
Okay, Fulton worked for us. Well, like I said, we never really had concrete titles. You can't go by what the yearbook said. He was PR, but he was also in controlling. So
good memories. I'll bring up one more for you from those Penthouse days, Nancy.
Okay.
Huey Newton, neighbor of yours.
Apparently, yes, a nice neighbor. I would trade some neighbors I've had for him. I had no idea of anything. I mean, when I came out here, I came from an area where the borders were drawn. They had prayer over the intercom every morning. But I didn't realize how different. I thought that was the norm. I was just happy I could wear bell-bottom pants to school when I came out here, and not dresses. So I just loved everything, and the view, everything. I remember Jerry. Isla said she had an aunt who lived in that building.
Really?
So
I don't recall that, but it's probably true. Yeah.
She did, and it was all I know is the FBI was in contact with Dad about what they were doing. They showed him the penthouse next to Hugh. There were 4 penthouses up there, only 2 occupied apparently. I thought it was just us. So another one had all this high-tech surveillance equipment brought in. And Dad was taken in and saw that and knew that they were planning a sting, doors shut up.
The FBI was doing this, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, okay.
I didn't know this was going on.
No, presumably neither did Huey Newton.
No. And they told Dad if they had to, they were going to bring the SWAT team in. And, Dad's thinking, I just got custody of my daughter. And
you don't need a SWAT team. So where did you guys move?
Well, I moved. Dad got a penthouse on the other side of the lake near Grand Lake Theater for his girlfriend and for me to live. And I noticed he didn't come with us. He was staying back at 1200 Lakeshore.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
And I didn't really know why. So he said he wanted it to be close to the school I was going to start, which was on Harris.
That's good enough.
Okay.
That's a good reason, sure.
Yeah. And I remember he would come by in the morning for breakfast. His girlfriend would make breakfast, and then he would go back at night. So then Dad told us what was going to happen, and I remember seeing the front page the next day. But I also said that that's the man I was in the elevator with because I saw his picture.
Oh, very cool. Good memories.
Yes. No one knew. I was in the elevator twice with him and 2 other guys. One time they had jackets, leather jackets. Another time they had really thick sweaters, turtlenecks.
Yeah, unfortunately for Huey, he met his end on a street on West Oakland.
Oh.
Yeah, he was murdered, as you know.
I really haven't looked into that. That's just sad because he was nice to me.
Yeah.
He knew a lot about people.
Very nice. How was he on baseball? Did he know anything?
They didn't know.
They didn't talk baseball.
The elevator was going. Well, see, I got off before they did because I got off on the 17th floor to take Jacques back. And I do remember they said they were going on to the 25th floor, and I was just turned 12. And after I got out, I thought, but that's us. But I didn't think anything of it because I was just so happy to be there. I wasn't able to analyze like I do now.
Hey, that's much like my podcast, Nancy. I don't know much, but I'm happy to be here. So let's learn a little bit because God knows I need the learning more than both of you put together. Let's learn a bit what's going on currently this week, and hopefully Jerry can tell us about what's going to happen next week.
Yes,
so,
Jerry.
Jerry Feiteberg.
Okay. I'm up, huh? Okay. Here's what's happening. The A's were in San Diego for 2 games, and they won both games. I wrote on my column on the Tuesday night victory, it's the stuff that kids dream about when they're growing up. The A's are down. They're losing 2-1, and it's the top of the ninth, 2 outs and 2 strikes, and Stephen Piscotty hits a home run to tie the game. I think that when I was a kid, I would fantasize about playing in Fenway Park with the bases loaded, 2 outs, and I hit a grand slam home run to win the game. And Piscotty did that. He tied the game, and then the A's won it in the 10th inning when Lowry hit a 2-run homer.
Oh, wow.
And then yesterday in San Diego, it was bombs away as they had 5 home runs in the game. And they had back-to-back home runs in the 2nd inning and back-to-back home runs in the 3rd inning.
Nice.
And it was the first time since 1997 that had ever occurred.
See, I know that first because I wanted that to happen in our 75 playoff game number 3. Anyway, okay. So, I won't mention that.
Hey, if it weren't for that, Nancy, that streak could still be going today.
I know, and I knew it happened.
37 in a row, it would have been.
Jerry is confirming what I knew I knew it could happen, so I held out hope.
Okay, miracle. You don't believe in fairy tales, but you do believe in miracles. So that makes life worth having something to look forward to.
And so, Jerry,
and now
Jerry, they're playing as good a ball as their payroll would allow. Let's put it that way.
Yes, they are.
You could get more out of a pretty small payroll comparison.
Their payroll, I think their payroll is 29th or 30th in Major League Baseball. They've got so many players at the minimum; it's unbelievable. But they got a lot of guys with power.
Well, money doesn't pay for wins, as we know. Well,
no, it doesn't.
That's right.
Except for the Yankees with Giancarlo Stanton and Aaron Judge and company. But the A's are doing well, and they have a chance to make some hay on this road trip. They have 8 games left, and they're playing the Chicago White Sox, which I believe the White Sox are in last place in the in American League Central. They have 4 games against them. The game is rained out today. They had a night game for tonight, and sorry to have been rained out. They're going to play a doubleheader tomorrow in Chicago on the road. And then they have 4 games in Detroit. And Detroit, I think, is in 2nd or 3rd place in the AL Central. They're under 500 club. So if the A's can somehow manage to win 6 out of the 8 games, that would propel them to a season-high 6 games over 500 before they return home to play the Cleveland Indians. So they have a great opportunity. And you know that if they hit so well on the road, they hit more home runs twice as many home runs on the road than they do at the Coliseum.
You want to find a way to stay on the road. Yeah. I mean,
part of the problem is that cold marine layer that comes into the Coliseum, the ball dies, and they get maybe 10 extra feet on the road, and they
thought of that. I couldn't stop thinking about that because of you, Jerry. I mean, when I was there on May 26th, it was cold and damp, and I kept thinking about that.
Yeah.
I just couldn't get that out of my mind.
Well, how bad is damp? But let me ask you this. I didn't have a firm question. I was just being silly. But Blackburn comes back with a good outing after being bombed, and that showed me a lot. He was hit around last week, and comes back last night with with a great outing.
Yes, he did, and so did Frankie Montas. Both of those guys, Montas gave up 7 runs, and Blackburn was charged with 8 runs, and the Houston Astros were using them for batting practice. But you got to remember, the Houston Astros, first team in the American League to 50 wins, defending world champions, they're playing with so much confidence. They won 12 in a row before losing to Tampa Bay. They are just a terrific team. They got it all going for them. They got 5 pitchers. McCullers, I think, has 8 wins. Garrett Cole has 8 wins. Verlander has 9 wins, and Charlie Morton's got either 8 or 9.
You think they'll make it again? To the champions this year?
Yeah, their 5th starter is a former Cy Young Award winner, Dallas Tyko, and he's their 4th or 5th starter. They are loaded. Their pitching is terrific, and their bullpen is very good. Their closer is not is okay, but he's not a great closer. He's got maybe 15 or 16 saves. That's Ken Giles, but he's doing the job, and they just go out and play with confidence, and you don't want to play them if you can avoid it. Unfortunately, the A's got 8 or 9 games left with the Astros for the rest of the season.
In 2013, someone sent me an article from Houston where it said there's a new owner, and it compared him to Finley. Like, oh no, interesting.
But,
wow, I need to pull that out.
The Astros were smart. They got one of these young GMs. He was an assistant GM in St. Louis, Luno, and he built the club. And now you're seeing so many teams emulate the Houston model, just going with younger players. They're getting rid of the expensive free agents, and they're just building from within. Now, fortunately, the Astros not only had developed young talent, they added Verlander, they added Josh Reddick, so they picked up Garrett Cole. They made a trade for it, so they added to the pieces that they had. But George Springer was a number 1 draft choice. Carlos Correa, Jose Altuve,
Bergman too.
Bregman, all these guys were draft choices, and they've done their job scouting, and they built from within. The A's are trying to do it with Matt Chapman, with Matt Olson, Chad Pinder, Franklin Barreto. Barreto had a 3-run dinger yesterday. He's getting a chance to play.
The future is now, and we're realizing just how valuable Lowry is. He came over here as a shortstop, was gracious enough to go to second base when Simeon comes along, and now goes to third when Matt Chapman goes down with an injury. How long is Matt Chapman going to be out?
Well, they said 10 days, and he's if he has trouble swinging the bat, if it hurts him, it might be a little bit longer. So you don't know how long that.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, they're not in any hurry. They've got a lot of talent. Matt Joyce is coming off the DL. He should be activated for the Chicago series, and then so that will take care of they'll have a left-handed bat in the lineup to platoon with Pinder. Pinder is also a great super sub. He can fill
very much so. He can play all over the infield and the outfield.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Mark Canha is giving them some great play. He's got 9 home runs.
He made it. Mark Canha makes a great play in the field the other day. Just an incredible.
He's been playing center field.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he played center field yesterday because they had lefty pitching going. And if not, they'll move him to left field, and they'll put Dustin Powell in. Powell is good defensively.
Has he started hitting it all yet, Fowler?
Yeah, he's hitting about 245. Not too bad. But he's not playing every day, so you got to give him a pass because he doesn't play every day.
I know, Jerry, but when you say 245, there's a lot of mediocrity going on. I'm not going to make this as negative as last week, but Piscotti 245, 250, Joyce 245, 250. Yeah. They do have a super hitting infield. Let's put it, especially when Chapman's back. I'll give them
when
that.
they're in a playoff, you really feel that when they bring those guys up to play. You really feel it if they're just average. You think, why?
Right.
Yeah, Nancy, there's a couple things that affect their average. Mm-hmm. First of all, the guys don't try and put the bat on the ball. There are too many strikeouts in the game. The A's are striking out 10 to 12 times a game. They either get a walk or try and hit the ball over the fence. What you need is, remember, they used to talk about moving the line. You have a guy get a single, another single, and a double, and they're not hitting the ball partly because of the shift. If you hit the ball up the middle, if they've shifted, the shortstop will cut it off before going into center field. If it's
you could inside out the ball and solve a lot of problems. If ball players would react to that shift, like a Tony Green would, like a Luke Appling would, and
a Rod Carew or
exactly
or Nichiro, and these guys had great bat control. You remember,
and eventually, I think that's what will break the shift. Guys will just consciously say, I could hit 330, or I could hit 210 with 40 home runs. Now, a guy like Sanchez on the Yankees is doing that right now. They're perfectly happy with all those home runs. They don't care if he hits below 200. Let me just finish this, Nancy, because this is important.
Okay.
There are 45 players batting under the Mendoza line, which was 200, set after Mario Mendoza was one of the few players to be a regular ball player and only hit like 200. Mm-hmm. So now back then it was an anomaly. Now it's common. You're absolutely right. They're just going for the downs on every pitch, home run or nothing. Don't put the ball in play. Don't get the runner over. Don't keep the line moving. It's just not baseball anymore. It really isn't.
Well, years ago, the Red Sox had a shortstop by the name of Don Budden. And Budden came up and hit about 240, and they ran him out of town. They called him a bum because he couldn't hit. And he was
hitting 240.
Yeah, and the late Mo Berg. Mo Berg hit 243 for his career. And, the rap on him is he couldn't hit. Well, if he were a catcher hitting 243 today, he'd be a big star. Who's the only catcher hitting? It's Posey.
That's
maybe
true.
Real Muto. Posey and Real
But
Muto.
as you know, it's almost impossible to compare generations now.
Yeah.
But those hitters those hitters were useful at getting other players, like Ralph said, to move along the bases and fill the bases up.
Yeah,
right.
They moved the line. And they used maybe a longer bat. The bats now are 31 inches long. I think they used to be 36 inches long. They used to have a thicker handle, and you could choke up on the bat and have better bat control. The handle the handle of the bat is so thin. If you go to bunt, the pitch will break the bat. And
don't they
how many bats break
they changed the standards for how bats are made?
They make them thinner and lighter. Because the guys want bat speed.
Yeah, they could still order whatever length and thickness they want, but they choose to go for that home run, and that's the way it is. That's the way the game is changing.
It's just tricky to depend on those home runs because they're great, but you can't. We won games without having them.
Okay. Let me ask you this, Jerry. What is your first impressions of Barreto, the guy there who was instrumental in the trade of Sonny Gray?
No, Barreto didn't come in the Sonny Gray trade. That Dustin Fowler did. Barreto came in the trade that sent the third baseman who won the MVP for Toronto. I can't think of his name at the moment.
Donaldson.
Yeah, Josh Donaldson. He came in the Josh Donaldson with.
I didn't realize that. I sit corrected at this point. I can't stand because I can't pull the chair out, so I sit corrected.
Yeah. Well, Barreto is 22 years old, and he's a tremendous prospect. He was one of the top prospects in all of baseball, and he's been shuttling back and forth. The A's, if they're not in it, they may move a couple players by the trade deadline, and those two guys would be Jed Lowry. Someone might be looking for a hitter, and Lowry certainly would be available. And the other one would be our friend Jonathan LaCroix. And LaCroix's been doing a fabulous job for the A's, and if I were the GM,
I know, and that is the old shuffle them on every year, the holidays and the Cespedes and all that, and that's why I was getting a little testy. It's running. The storyline is getting a little old. I know that'll be changed when there is a shovel in the ground for a ballpark. Once everybody sees that there's gonna be a ballpark, it'll change things.
But why will it change things? Shouldn't they win anyway? I mean, shouldn't they do it?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, no,
they could do it anyway.
Once fans are assured, I'll tell you what it is. Fans have come accustomed to rooting, and I'm a perfect example. I grew up in New York. I was a New York Giant fan for 10 years of my life. In the 11th year, they move. I mean, what could be worse? And since then, I've been a little gun-shy of who I'm going to pay allegiance to.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
So, fans are very leery of, coming out to the ballpark, bringing their kids, buying caps, buying T-shirts, taking pictures, and all of a sudden they're gone. Look what the Raiders have done twice.
Does that affect how the players perform, though?
No, when I say things are going to change, you're going to get more fans coming out to see them, which in essence, if you think about it, the players will perform better with a full crowd.
Oh, I agree with psychology in baseball, like Game 3 of '75. I totally agree with that.
Okay.
They're down.
How would you feel as a player knowing you go out there and there's 6,000 people in the stands and this big 55,000 seat stadium looks empty? You're playing in front of nobody. And the A's
you're playing in front of 40,000 people, and it's the Red Sox, and 35 are rooting for the Red Sox.
Yeah, what did the A's do when the Red Sox were here? They took 2 out of 3 from the Red Sox.
Right.
I know it depends on how they're treated on the road, and I do remember hearing that our players were put through the meat grinder when they played in Boston.
Here's the thing, Nancy. When they start drawing a few more people, they'll be able to put a few more dollars into player development, scouting in the Dominican, into signing free agents, and signing better coaches in the minors, player development. You could hire a guy to coach in A-ball and pay him, you could pay him $10,000 a month. Okay? Or you could hire a guy in A-ball and you could pay him $600 a month. So you're going to get a better brand of coaching if you pay him more. And when an organization has no money coming in, they skimp on those things. They skimp on the amenities at the ballpark. They may only clean the ballpark once every 2 days as opposed to every day, that sort of thing. You know how that goes.
Are there rules about
you bring more fans in, you generate more money. Hopefully, if you have an ownership and a program that's designed for the future, and they see that there's going to be a ballpark, and they want things to progress so that when the ballpark comes in, they've built a championship team to go with that new ballpark. And
but Ralph, you don't want it to be a Miami Marlins situation. That ballpark is empty now. It's a brand new ballpark. It was good for 1 year, and then they had some players, but the Marlins emulated the A's model. They had guys like Stanton, Osuna, Yelich, and Gordon. Those are four pretty good players. And what do? They got rid of them all because they had new ownership, and they wanted to reduce the payroll. And then let's
not even worry about that yet. Let's get it to the point where you build the championship.
But I have this question, though. In 75, our guys, when they came back, they were so long-faced and depressed because they were verbally abused by the fans in Boston. And I don't know if there's any rule. I mean, I know it's done, but it was really, really bad apparently, and they just had 1 day off. So I wonder how do you control that?
Well, Boston is a strange breed of fans. You could ask Bill Russell about that, and you could ask Adam Jones.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Really? Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't think they might have been down because they lost.
Well,
but I don't know if any major league player could take it on the road.
And a bomb threat on the bus that their wives were taking.
Oh,
that's terrible. That's terrible.
Yeah.
There's no call for that.
Yeah, we had to arrange for a decoy bus. So that was bad.
That's where the psychotics of the world come out and the craziness, and you don't even want to even talk to them on a podcast because you feel you might be entertaining them.
Mm-hmm.
That sort of thing.
True. That's right. But that was real. I always wondered how much psychology played a part in that.
Well, it plays a big part in everything, as you well know.
Yeah.
Hey, guys, this has been terrific, as usual. When I get the two of you together, it's more fun. Individually, you're a lot of fun, but together, wow.
We have different perspectives on things, but we agree.
It's time to do another lunch, guys.
Okay. All right. Alameda it is.
Yes.
Same place, same, what is it, that burger place on Webster? Nations.
Nations. Oh, you like that place, Ralph?
Oh, I love that place.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
They've been around a long time.
Okay.
All right.
Nations
it is. Hey, be good and be healthy, everybody. If you're listening out there, do us a favor and accumulate some gently used or even new children's books and take them to the Head Start program wherever you are. Kids need to read. They need to get their noses out of the devices and the computers. They need to become school ready, and they need to develop an imagination and hopefully a passion, because reading will give you all those things, and if there's nothing to read, then there's nowhere to grow for these kids. And you say, well, why these kids at Head Start? Because they need the help more than others. They need a head start. And if I seem like a socialist, just for a second, I'm not really one, but I'll play one on the radio. By the way, don't be afraid of that word, because if you go to the library, that's socialism. If you have a police force, that's socialism. Fire department, socialism. Garbage, socialism. Everybody's afraid of that, but that's how it works. It's a nasty word, and it should be a word that denotes helping everyone. Everyone should have a chance not to live on the street, not to be hungry, not to need children's books. So there you go. That's it for the day. Great. That's my political rant and my
get your books together.
Serious appeal to everybody to pitch in along these lines. You can make a difference in your community. You get together, you have a drive for books, whatever it takes, do it your own way. Go down there with a bunch of books. They'll love you.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thank you.
I'm Ralph Tyko, Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. Nancy's going to bring on the owner of the A's one of these days. Am I right?
The owner?
Yeah, the owner.
John Fisher?
No, not John Fisher. John Fisher doesn't talk to anybody. His representative, the guy.
You mean the president, Dave Cap?
Dave, yes. Yes.
Ralph, if you'll indulge me before we go off, you were talking about reading, and the late Barbara Bush had a saying, reading is fundamental. And the other thing is, if you have a book, you're never alone.
Absolutely. And you'll know this. You're an avid reader like myself. When you get to that last chapter of a book, and it's ending, and you don't want it to end because it's like losing a friend. Am I right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
You got to nurse that thing along, and you got to have one that interests you right on deck. Keep reading, everybody. Keep learning. As old as we are, we just want to get older and learn as much as we can and pass it on. Thank you for listening. We'll be back before you know it. Adios, everybody.
Bye-bye, Ralph.
And Jerry. Bye, Nancy.